Welcome everybody to another Fireside, and something crazy is happening today. The show's getting taken over. Like I'm out of here. Like someone else is taking over. So Paula,
Just for today, just for today. So I'm Paula. I'm a field CTO at Nearform. I'm also Cody's boss, but like we don't have bosses. We just riff on tech and we do good things with tech. So I wanted Cody to be the subject of the fireside chat today because he's doing some really cool things with tech for social interaction. And you'll see these apps coming to conferences near you and you'll get to use them, which is even more awesome. So take it away, Cody and team.
yeah, let's get started and stick around to the end because we're going to talk about how you can get involved because everything's open source, and we'd love for you to be using these apps or even better contributing back to this community. So stick around to the end. Let's do it. So thanks for that amazing introduction, and I'm going to try being a guest on the Fireside series here. So yeah, we're here to talk about social interactions, and I think for me, we came up with this idea because I get a lot of liberty to develop new concepts and new ideas at Nearform and apply those in a a DX perspective, developer relations perspective. And what always happens that you pointed out to me is that all the things that I showed to you all have to do with people interacting with themselves or amongst themselves, right? I'm very stuck in this idea of using technology to facilitate interactions, human interactions, which I feel like it's like a paradox, right?
Because we're in tech. Yeah, but you also teach. You have a lot of peopling things about you.
Yeah, that's probably a good point. So I have a long career in software, firmware, robotics, and all kinds of really geeky, techie stuff. But I also teach at the university where I teach a web development course, and that's really like a passion project, right? It's obviously teaching, and I'm just there for fun. Really, I teach one course, and so I think that has also transitioned into my day job, doing DX or developer relations, into using tech to facilitate human interactions.
And then actually you do a lot of talks and this first piece, you did a talk about using QR codes as an API mechanism, which I thought was really interesting. And then like, how did that lead to using QR codes to get people to, how did that all come together?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I used. Well, that's actually a funny story. That started. There is a bar across the street that I have been known to frequent from time to time to have a beer on Wednesday nights with my buddies, and the owner who became a friend was talking about having some sort of fidelity program or a system to have points. It all kind of starts at Oktoberfest, which surprised me actually starts at the end of September and finishes in October. He keeps track of how many liters of beer everybody drinks, and I think the record is like 270 liters of beer by Coco. I don't know who Coco is, but they have consumed an enormous quantity of beer.
Is that your code name? Coco Cody?
It's me, right? I hadn't thought of that. Oh boy, I think I'd ask him, like, were you keeping track of me? So he's talking about this, and he knows that I work in tech. And he's like, oh, I wish I had like an app that I could use for fidelity stuff. And he's telling me he's technically minded, so he has these Raspberry Pis that power these touchscreen menus, and he can change the menu remotely from his server. So he's kind of a hacker, likes doing playing with tech himself. So he didn't want to buy some really expensive enterprise level closed source point of sale fidelity system. He's like, can't you come up with like a better idea? Like, there's got to be a better idea. And that's where the idea was born, that using QR codes to communicate by whether a client is either going to present their QR code and the barman scans it, or the opposite. Maybe the barman presents a QR code and the client scans it. Like, it's still kind of in the works. What's the right way to have that interaction? But you and I talked about, like, that's kind of replacing classical REST or GraphQL API calls. It's just really local communication between two devices. Which, like you said, human interaction, right?
Yeah. So how the heck did that turn into? I'll do the spoiler, Slider, which is the app, one of the apps you're going to talk about.
So I think, boy, how did it turn into that? Well, obviously, working on that project, I got to have some experience coding with QR codes. And in React, there's an amazing library, React QR code, named appropriately, that lets you render an SVG QR code from any data that you want. So that kind of inspired me to another project that I was working on, which actually came from a former Nearform colleague, Jay. I'll put his name in the link to this post I saw on LinkedIn. We'll put it in the show notes at the end. He came up with this idea of an interactive presentation. His worked a little bit different, but it inspired me to say, oh, what if we could combine presenting on a stage or virtually with something like a Facebook live stream, where you have this like stream of like emojis going by, either vertical or horizontal. I don't really remember how it works. I don't do much live streaming on Facebook, but what if you could combine that with giving a presentation? So if I'm on the stage, could users be putting reactions in real time on the presentation that's being presented on the presenter? And that's where the QR code came in. It's like, how can they connect to that application? Well, what if there's a QR code on the screen that they could scan, and now they could interact directly with my presentation?
Very cool. So you tried this actually, and then like, is there a story about like the first time you tried it? Did you learn a lot? Because this was, brand new. Just
couple stories.
always.
I'll save one story for the demo that I think we're going to do later. But another story is the very first time I did it. Well, I don't want to name any names, but I do a lot of conferences in Europe, and every country has its own culture, right? And there's countries that are, my observation, it's more culturally acceptable to be an extrovert and to, express yourself. And there's other cultures where it's a little bit more introvert, and you don't want to create a disruption. So oddly enough, I think the first time I did it, I chose a country where people didn't want to create a disruption, and I got like maybe 4 or 5 emojis for like a 45-minute talk. Well, fortunately, I had a coworker there, and they just blew it up. Like, they had emojis going everywhere. But I knew that they were all coming from my coworker.
So you could have audience plants to do the emojis too, right?
Yeah, I did. I've done other conferences where it worked really well, and emojis were going by the whole time, and I knew people were engaged in what I was saying because I was seeing the hearts and smileys going by while I was presenting. So it feels really good to get that interaction.
So where did that lead, right? Because we'll see Slider, but then we'll see this most recent app, which is even more interesting. So how did you come up with that idea? Codework is the code name.
I don't know how these ideas come up, but there's just this stream of things happen. I got approached by the marketing team that's hosting NodeConf EU, and they're like, hey, we wanted to have some sort of like interactive scavenger hunt to the concept was to encourage people to interact with other members of the conference. And we talked a little bit about that, and it kind of developed in this idea of there's going to be a puzzle, like a puzzle that you have to assemble, this cube in 3D that you have to assemble, and we could have pieces, like Tetris pieces, that are on people's t-shirts. And next to the t-shirt, we'll put a QR code, and so if you scan the QR code, you gain the piece that's on their t-shirt, and that will help you assemble this cube. And the idea is you have to be there in front of the person to scan their QR code, so you're going to have to talk to them and make some sort of interaction. So it was just this kind of natural progression, and QR codes always end up being the link between those. And obviously the motivation is to make people interact and communicate.
That's so awesome. Well, do you have anything else you'd like to add before we go to the demos?
I think both of these apps are probably still a little bit in beta, but I'm getting ready to make a big splash. Maybe that's today. You're going to see more of both of these, so stick around for the demo. Let's do a demo.
All open source, right?
All open source. Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. Like everything I'm working on is open source, so all the source code's out there. We'll put links to the repositories into the show notes, and come and help. Like these are tools that are truly motivated by having people interact. So if you can interact with me and other developers to build these tools, I think that's really important. And that's what we love at Nearform, right? Is that sort of spirit. We can use open source to build all kinds of cool things.
Yeah. Connecting people. We have all sorts of innovation going on at Nearform. We launched at Rama, the makers of Fastify, so it's part of our DNA.
Absolutely, right? And this is just along those themes, right? Is that open source will bring value back to your organization. So I feel like Nearform has really understood that, and I feel really lucky that we work for a company that supports that idea, and I feel like we're here proving that, right? Like by doing these things, making that proof.
Yep, tech for good.
Love that.
To the demos.
Let's do some demos. First thing I want to demo is Slider.app, the interactive presentation framework that we've been talking about. So I'm here at Slider.app, love this domain, and I happen to have a presentation about Slider. So there's some recursive fun in there. Slider about Slider. I guess I could talk a little bit about the homepage, have all of my presentations in here. In the long term, I see this as being a way we could sort presentations maybe by teams and different users. You'd see your own presentations first, and then maybe in the long term, people could rate presentations, and these could be shown to you based on their popularity. So a lot to do here. Right now, it's just these couple of presentations that I have. So I'm going to click on one of these. First thing I have here is a view. This is like the desktop view. So I'm thinking about YouTube if I was going to present locally. But I can go to presentation view. So sorry, I said thinking about YouTube in the sense of here, if I had comments, if people wanted to leave comments on a presentation, like they could show up in this view. Then I want to present, and I click my present button here. And now I want to present view. I'm not going to put this in full screen for the demo, but you could easily put this in the full screen. You can already see you have that QR code that's sliding around on the side. And of course, like any person, yeah, go for it, Paul. Will you please scan the QR code and let's see what we can do. Like any presentation framework, I can go through the slides. There's something really magical about that part of it. And now we can see, we can actually have interactions on here. I can throw up, I have a speaker view, which you won't be able to see because that'll be in a different window. But we can do all kinds of things. We can put confetti on the screen, tons and tons and tons of emojis on there. So what's really fun is I could ask questions while I'm talking to the audience, and they could, give their feedback in an interactive sense. So I think that's...
I'm doing that.
Yeah, good. That's what I want to see. And a funny story about this is I actually used this tool at a conference, Kubernetes Community Days in Munich. I had a really spotty internet connection, and that's pretty efficient, but like my internet connection would drop. And then when I'd reconnect to the internet, all of these emojis would come on the screen. So I knew the moment that my internet dropped because there'd be no emojis on the screen. I'd be like, oh, either everybody's sleeping or my internet's no longer working.
I mean, that's awesome. I mean, that's when I'm sitting and watching a presentation, I'm just kind of sitting there absorbing it. And this one is like, I can just say, that's awesome. I love that. Looks cool.
Yeah, and it's so fun when you're on the stage too, and you see people giving smiley faces or hearts going by while you're presenting your presentation. So a lot of fun technology in there, but maybe save that for another Fireside or another format to talk about how this works. But this is gonna be big. Like I'm so convinced this is gonna go big, and there's gonna be a lot of interesting stuff happening. Like I said, there's also a speaker view, thinking like Google Slides, where you can have a preview and have your speaker notes. For today, I'm just demoing the actual presentation view.
Yeah. And then you've got, on my side, you've got the link to tweet, to post it on LinkedIn, or just copy the link. So it's really interactive. It's cool.
Yeah. And what's so cool about that is you actually get when you
share those, whether it's on LinkedIn or Twitter, it'll put the slide will be the, in your card, your image card on the social network will be the current slide when you click the share button. So I'm really proud of that feature. It took a lot of work to get there. And so it's just so fun to have people interacting. And like I said, you can share things directly. It's something I always want. I take photos of people's presentations and put them on Twitter. But now with those share buttons directly in that app, you can do it yourself.
Very cool.
So let's move on to another demo. So as we also talked about cube work, so like I said, this passion for interacting with people at conferences, cube work is taking that to a whole nother level, where I want to not just have interaction between me and the audience, but I want the audience to interact amongst themselves. So here we have cube work, which is kind of a puzzle, thinking something of a hybrid of a Rubik's Cube and Tetris, a puzzle that you're going to build. And the idea is that we could have shapes that are associated with QR codes. There'd be a shape, like a Tetris kind of shape, and a QR code, and those could be scattered throughout a conference or maybe even printed on t-shirts to force you to go and talk to that person and scan their QR code. And as you scan those QR codes, you get these shapes that build up on the left-hand side of my screen here. I have this inventory where all the shapes that I've scanned, I'm collecting them into my inventory. And at some point during the conference, I can sit down, I can start building my cube, filling in the puzzle with those pieces. So let's put a few pieces in there. I don't know, Paula, what your favorite color is.
I like the little purple one.
Little purple ones. I'll put more in a second. So there, I've had the app works. You build each layer of the cube sequentially. So thinking kind of like levels, you got to level up. So you can't just kind of randomly put pieces in there. Although maybe one day it'll work that way. Really,
you've got level 2 there. Hey, rookie.
Yeah. So here we're level 2. You're still a rookie, right? You haven't moved up to the pro level. You still got a lot of people to talk to. We'll throw some purple pieces in there, orange one. And now if I put a piece in there that doesn't fit, it just kind of ignores that. You can see the counter doesn't go back down, but this piece should still fit. And these ones. So now we're at level 3.
So how do you get things in your inventory?
So to get the pieces in inventory, you're going to walk around and you're going to scan those QR codes. So there'll always be a shape and a QR code. And when you scan the QR code, it's going to add that shape into your inventory. Technically, this is so cool because there's no database involved. All the data is stored in IndexedDB, so local storage in your browser. So the QR codes aren't communicating with any database. They're really just bringing you back to this web page where you've collected all those pieces that you've scanned. And the idea is people are going to go around, and if these are printed on t-shirts or around booths, it's going to give you incentive to go and talk to those people and scan their QR code. Anytime I could reset this and restart putting those collected pieces into the cube. So I'm really excited about this. There's so much
the world premiere, right? The world
this
premiere.
This is the grand, the big reveal is right now.
And we're going to beta it at one of the largest tech conferences in the world. It's the Grace Hopper Celebration, which is, it could be 30,000 people even playing remotely. Who knows? So we'll have some fun with that.
I'm so excited about that opportunity. I'm going to be at Grace Hopper virtually. So I won't be there physically to see how this goes, but I'm hoping even the virtual conference, we could throw up some QR codes and tell people to scan this now, right?
Yeah, tweet it out, or get people to. It's so cool because you don't have to physically be at the conference to interact with people at the conference. So I'm excited.
I think that's a great point. Like there's no longer just a tool for one conference in physical sense. Like this is a tool, a game, an interactive activity that we can do virtually too. Of course, I'll change the branding for Grace Hopper, right? This is just the first one was for NodeConf, and we'll make this, if we want to use this in multiple conferences, we can make that all, templated to change out the branding.
Amazing. And we're not doing this to collect information. We don't think, you said there's no database behind it. We're not collecting anything. This is really just to get people to have fun and connect with each other. That's the best.
Yeah, that was important. Design goal that we tried to stick to, a principle that we stuck to. Was like, we're living in 2023, privacy first, right? We're thinking about Web3. Nothing Web3 on here, but throwing out some buzzwords. There is no data collected. This is all running in your browser. The QR codes are going to bring you back here, and the goal is just to get people to interact. And I think we will try to get some pop-ups, maybe some marketing messages that we could put in here to get people excited. But it's you, your phone, your data. No data collected. So
little recruiting messages if you try to hack it, and it's really great. Just communication and connection.
I'll save that. If anyone does try to hack this application, like we've put up some boundaries to say, hey, way to go. Like, we're happy you're doing this, right? Because it's hackable, right? This is all running in your browser, it's JavaScript. And we'll try to get their resume over to Nearform.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hire them.
And then you can do more things like this. This is kind of what we do.
Loving this. Yeah. Feel so lucky to have been able to work on this and see how it goes. So we'll see how it goes at Grasshopper. All right.
Yeah. Thanks, Cody.